Well, hello and welcome to Kinship Earth Connections. I'm your host, Lauren Archer, Executive Director of Kinship Earth. And on behalf of our founders, Susan Davis Mora, Walter Mora, and Stephen Gomes, our advisory team, George Orbellian and Terry Molnar, our donors, members, and extended community of kindred spirits, we are delighted to share this time with you. Before I introduce today's featured guest, Mark Epstein, I'd like to share a brief overview of the KINS network phenomenon. Susan Davis Mora has established over 40 KINS innovation networks over the past 40 plus years. And these are networks of heart-centered earth advocates who are working all over the world to raise consciousness, to transform our global economy and systems from fear and greed to generosity and love. Kinship Earth is the next evolution of KINS innovation networks, where we are building on the foundation that Susan has already established and connecting individuals across networks to make rapid advances at this critical time in human history. At each Kinship Earth Connections event, we introduce members of the KINS alumni community to share progress on their initiatives, help facilitate introductions and strategic alliances, and foster our growing community as one global network. Today, we're delighted to welcome Mark Epstein, a mathematician, organic farmer, and SEEDS Regenerative Currency tokenomics expert. Mark will give us an update on the status of the SEEDS Regenerative Currency initiative. But first, I'd like to also acknowledge the other people in the room who are actively involved in stewarding this budding initiative forward. And then I'm going to invite Stephen Gomes to say a few words of introduction to Mark. So let's see who else is here. So we've got Stephen, we've got Alex. Alex is involved closely in SEEDS and in Haifa. Let's see, anyone else? Okay, Sydney, of course. Sydney Griffith has been spreading seeds. We call her Jane Appleseed in a way through her permatours movement. Kimberly Marsh has been active in the communications for SEEDS. And I know a couple other folks may be hopping on the call later. Is there anyone?
Hank just hopped in. He's our newest Board of Advisors member.
Wonderful. Hank, good to have you on the call.
And I just had an opportunity to visit Hank at his farm, which was wondrous. I strongly urge anybody that's anywhere in the neighborhood to go see this wondrous farm that he's developed and, experience the unique thing. I've never seen anybody before do it. He can actually go talk. And I didn't even know it was a thing, but there is a thing called go talk, and he does it, and he starts yelling, and you don't see any goats anywhere. And then all of a sudden, like from a mile away, here comes a whole herd of goats, and they come right up to you, and he knows them by name. Coco, this, that. They all have names. They're like almost like pets. It's like amazing. And these goats are like smart. Wow.
And Hank is going to be our presenter in June. So Friday, June 17th will be his featured spot. So we're going to get to hear a lot more about Hank. Stephen, would you like to say a few words of introduction to Mark? And because you were instrumental in bringing a lot of people into the SEEDS movement. So why don't you give us a little high-level overview?
Well, I have to tell you that I knew of Mark before I knew Mark. And he is one of our most illustrious KINS fellows and alumni. And after I've gotten to know Mark, I fully understand why. Susan always told me about Mark, and I always wanted to meet him, but you know how Susan spent so much time vetting each and every special person in the KINS network. And that's the beauty of what she created. She spent more time, sometimes up to a year, before she would open a network. She would try to find out who was the highest consciousness person in a particular network. And Mark was one of those truly gifted people that she discovered, and Mark was attracted her to what she was doing and became one of her early Kids Network's people. And what I discovered about Mark is he's got this incredible, profound gift of being able to take concepts that are quite complicated and have many logical ins and outs and explain it in a way that even the person with the lowest IQ in the room can understand exactly what he means. And when no one else can get this complicated thing, he can break it down, and he never loses a step in or bounce. You'll see when he starts talking, he never ever refers to notes. He just completely has it full bore all the time. And I would tell you, I would trust him with explaining anything that I was involved in. I asked him to join SEEDS. I introduced him to SEEDS, and now he's my boss. What can I say? You know, it's just like he's bringing tremendous value to the whole SEEDS network and to the world, for that matter, because I believe SEEDS, the regenerational currency and community, will in fact make a difference on the planet. And thank you to Mark. So I'm going to stop there and let you actually hear from the real person rather than me. And I can't hold a candle to him. But anyway, here he is. Glad to have you on board, Mark.
Let's give a warm welcome to Mark Epstein.
Hello, everybody. I'm sitting here in my office, and I love it when I can see everybody. The best part, I mean, we're all on Zoom a lot, but as I look around the room, I've been with Walter and Susan in person. I've gotten to meet Stephen in person. I've gotten to meet Sid in person. I probably met Hank in person, but that was a long time ago. And I feel like I've met George in person, but I'm not sure if I actually have. I met Kimberly. Kimberly stayed at my house. I met Kimberly in person. Yay! So this is a delight to be able to be here and talk about KINS and talk about the relationship with the SEEDS ecosystem. I first met, and also in the SEEDS ecosystem, you know, there are numerous people that are helping create the vision, the implementation, the thought, the attention. I think that's what's so beautiful about the SEEDS community since I've learned about it, is that people really have, a deep alignment on what the intention is. And people are really, really quite kind and quite lovely. I first met Susan, I would think it's in the 1980s in Chicago. And at that time, the organic standards were being developed in the United States. And I think I met her through a fundraiser related to the organic standards. And through there, we became friends and began to wind up traveling in the same circles. My background is in the financial markets. And as a mathematician, I was living in Chicago, although I grew up in Florida. And I had been part of a plant-based, health-centered family my whole life. And there I was in Chicago studying math and I got introduced to a small organic farm outside of Chicago, John Peterson and Angelic Organics, which was one of the early pioneers in the CSA local food movement. And then I met Susan and Walter. Actually, I met Walter much later. I probably knew Susan, 5-10 years before Walter. But they were living up in Elkhorn, Indiana. Wisconsin, Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And that's where Michael Field's Ag Institute is. And that's where Walter had his biodynamic farm. And I got to go up there and hear the story about how they met. And Susan invited me to be part of one of her KINS groups. At that point, I can't remember for sure the exact name, but that particular circle was they were people who were supposed to be together, but not KINS. I can't remember the name right now. Susan will probably remember, but it was people who were on their KINS, were on their life destiny, and their life destinies were interweaving, as opposed to many of Susan's circles were really purpose driven to start. where like Solar Circle, that came together to really have an impact in the space of solar. This particular circle was just people that Susan felt were part of the fabric of supporting each other and a journey into their life purpose. So I really loved that. And we, of course, stayed in touch for a long time until in the middle of COVID, I woke up one morning and I needed to call Susan, and I knew she was in Ecuador. And I just had this premonition that I needed to speak with her. It was really woke up that way. And we learned how to figure out how to use a phone, one of these, to talk to each other far away. And she said, I've just had this amazing vision. And you called me like the same moment. And she was gathering a group of 12. And through that group of 12, which I was happy to participate in, I met Stephen Gomes, I met Anilos, I met William, who's on the call. And through that, I met Lauren, and I met George, and I met more and more people, and I got introduced to the SEEDS ecosystem. So that's what we're going to be speaking about today. I'm going to start. Lauren is going to be sharing various links, I'm sure, over time, but I'm going to share my screen to start. I'm going to mostly be not sharing my screen, I think, but I'm going to start by sharing my screen here. And you guys should be able to see that, although I can't see you anymore. So this website is called joinseeds.earth. And this is the entry point to learn about the SEEDS ecosystem. And so I want to, you can write down this link, joinseeds.earth, and then you can read it a little bit more. I want to speak about a few things about it. So in particular, the SEEDS ecosystem does have a currency. It has a means of, if I'm a farmer selling tomatoes and you would like to buy tomatoes, that you could use SEEDS, the token, the utility token, to buy those tomatoes. So that's true. SEEDS is a community. And the community works together towards a specific goal, which is the regeneration of our planet, our communities, and that includes water and air and kindness and just the way that people relate to each other, and in particular, finding a way for humans to be in balance with natural systems. Our boundaries of carrying capacity of the earth are being really hurt right now. And so this has begun to speak about as an economic renaissance, but it requires tools. It requires programs apps that can run on your phone so that you can keep track of what's happening in the ecosystem, and you can send seeds to the farmer or to the person who's selling you a sandwich. It needs to tell the story of how seeds are being used in the world and why they are helpful at achieving our goal of a regenerative renaissance. And it speaks to, in particular, these are all of the different elements, the activities that are happening on the ground. And so here, for instance, is a story about Finca Sagrada, Walter and Susan's farm in Ecuador. And so as we go through this, one point that I want to make up down here at the bottom is the SEEDS Constitution. And I'm going to click on that. Again, you can get to that from the bottom of joinseeds.earth. And the SEEDS Constitution, part of that wonderful meeting with Susan, I met Anilos Smitsman. And Anilos served as a futurist, helping SEEDS see the vision of where they were going and to kind of bring that vision from the future back until now. And she participated in the creation of the SEEDS Constitution and the archetypes and the numerology behind it. And one of the things that I want to say is that SEEDS is, in fact, more than just a currency that you can buy tomatoes with. And so I'm going to read here the purpose. So we slide down here. Our purpose: to serve the regenerative renaissance by co-creating economic, governance, and financial systems for regenerative and thriving civilizations. And when you read this Constitution, you'll really feel the intention deeply. You'll feel what the principles are and what this community is coming together to achieve. So this is something that is very different than, say, Bitcoin or some of the many hundreds and thousands of crypto projects that are really just about the currency itself. They're about, I'm going to stop the share here for a minute so I can see you all better. Where the ecosystem surrounding Ethereum is serving a particular purpose, the ecosystem surrounding Cosmos We recently have seen the ecosystem around Terra Luna have substantial difficulty. And there are hundreds and thousands of ecosystems that are communities that have come together to do something to honor the groundbreaking opportunity that blockchain represents and to hold on to the space of what a decentralized community might be able to create together. How can we organize and prioritize and facilitate building something new as humanity and no longer be the humanity that looks at a tree and talks about how many dollars they can get after they cut it down and turn it into lumber, or looks at a mountain and says how many dollars can they get if they cut off the top of the mountain and try and find some coal inside. The destruction that has happened on the planet as we've gotten more and more powerful, a human being 500 years ago could only do a certain amount of damage because they couldn't really go very far and they only had their hands and clever levers to work with. But the minute that we got into the Industrial Revolution, we've got the capacity to impact the planet dramatically, and we have. And capitalism and all forms of government and currency have done a really great job of organizing human behavior in a way to destroy, or rather to take resources from the planet as though they were ours to exploit, and to coordinate, kind of funneling that economic capacity in the human and natural life into the hands of a small number of people that control the power. So we've gone through, hundreds and thousands of years that have led us to this moment, and we now have blockchain and communities that are looking to form together to perhaps create something very different. And we need to do that now. And so when I first learned about the SEEDS ecosystem, this constitution that I showed you a brief bit about hadn't yet existed. I learned about SEEDS probably about 6 or 8 months after it launched. And they had a draft constitution and they had a draft idea of how things were going to work. But what they had accomplished so far was they built the framework on the blockchain. For real simplicity, a blockchain is a group of computers working together, allowing people to make agreements with each other that are reliable, that are non-alterable, that are not forgeable, and you don't need a trusted third party. So if I go to Hank and I say, I'd like to, buy your land, or buy a portion of your land, and we agree to the terms, in the regular world, it's not done unless we have a trusted third party called lawyers and the registrar of deeds in the county and so forth to act as authority figures to validate that we've done what we wanted to do. We depend upon everything in our regular world on a trusted third party. And what the blockchain allows is that we can do those kinds of things between people without needing a trusted third party, because we can stand on the shoulders of mathematicians for the last 4,000 years who have built the ideas that have led to the capacity for this to exist. So blockchain is this real game changer. And so I learned about SEEDS, and they had built their ecosystem on top of a blockchain, and they had created the token SEEDS, like I might use to go and buy a sandwich or something, and it actually existed. And so I downloaded the wallet on my phone to learn how it worked, and I signed up, and I got some SEEDS, and I sent them to a friend, and I started to kind of play around with it and learn about it. I learned how the SEEDS ecosystem came to exist, for instance. Who built this? How did it get built? And the way that it got built required the collaboration of a group of people that were not in the same town. They weren't going to the same office every day, but through the magic of the internet and the ability to work across vast distances, they had storytellers and visionaries and computer programmers and governance experts, and they designed this whole thing and built it. It was amazing. And so I got really inspired, because deep at the heart of the SEEDS vision is that we can step outside of our regular familiar US dollar or euro or Japanese yen or regular fiat ecosystems. We could step aside from that, and what would happen if we did? What might it look like? And they built in their design the idea that the act of using the seeds ecosystem for your economic activity, buying your food at the farmer's market, buying a bicycle, renting a bicycle, sharing a bicycle, whatever are the things that you might do in your economic activity, if you did them with seeds instead of dollars, a consequence of that will be that the planet will be better. That's a pretty big statement. The consequence of using this different technology for exchanging value. You're a plumber, I've got a broken sink. You come and help me and fix my broken sink, and I send you 100 seeds. The act of doing that was somehow going to make the planet thrive, was going to create more joyful communities, was going to put more carbon in the ground and more fresh water and clean air. It was going to take care of nature. It was going to figure out a way to live in balance with nature. It was going to have more art festivals and more music and more meditation and more joy and more thrivability. And although I didn't really explore it that much at the beginning from that perspective, I knew it was true. It turned out it's a hard task, but I knew that it was true. And I felt like I was called to be there because it seemed to be firing every cell in my brain. As you may have seen when we started, I have a small veganic farm here in North Carolina. I care a lot about the soil and healthy food. But I'm also a mathematician and a scientist, and I've been involved actively in the financial markets, the derivatives and high-speed trading and that whole world. I've been involved in social impact investing and it just seemed like all of these different facets of my 56-year journey at that time had kind of like all happened because I was going to learn about seeds. That's how much it felt like on just an intuitional connection level. But you got to get into the weeds and you got to go and look at the details. And it turns out seeds did not birth on its own. It was built by people, and those people had to figure out how to organize, and they created a decentralized community to organize for the purpose of creating seeds. And they called that company, that community, they right now you've probably heard in the news a lot the word DAO, D-A-O, for decentralized autonomous organization. And this is a new way for humans to work together to create something, to collaborate, different than just starting a regular LLC or a regular company. So Haifa organized itself as a DAO, a collective of people that have come together for purpose to accomplish something. And they had to learn how to work together. How do you collaborate? How do you facilitate? How do you prioritize? How do you share resources? How do you align on vision? Where do you do your collective sensing? And how does this whole new world of organization work? And it felt to me when I heard this story that this is very much like, we're in the dark trying to be as talented as the bees in my beehive. The bees in my beehive collaborate for purpose, and they do mind-bogglingly amazing things in their ability to facilitate and collaborate. And here we are in humans saying we're going to collaborate in a decentralized way for purpose, and we kind of don't know how to do it yet. And we're going to learn together, and we're going to hold that as our intention and our purpose. And so Haifa was having as purpose, let's create the seeds ecosystem to achieve all this most beautiful world that we know is possible. And let's figure out how we're going to work together, 50, 100 people all over the planet with different goals and different needs and different historic wounds that they bring with them into that moment, different visions of what the future looks like. How are we as humans going to care for each other and support each other? This is what it was so great about the KINS groups when I was in them, because they actually met in person, and it's a lot easier to do this kind of stuff in person. And I'm not talking about in person in New York City Hilton up on the 37th floor. I'm talking about in person with your shoes off, touching the soil and the grass, in person in a sacred space connected to water and soil and food. And that's where Susan and Walter, pretty much all the gatherings that I can remember really that I was part of with KINS always took place in that kind of a setting. So it was great. And so here we are kind of being that same kind of vision, that same kind of goal of collaboration, except for we have to do it over Zooms. We have to do it from vast distances, and we wanted to still build that. And the Haifa community is wonderful, and the SEEDS community is wonderful. And people, their traumas come up, and their journeys come up, and their love comes up, but they've been called. They have found themselves at this moment to be part of this, and they often don't even know why. So there you go. So Haifa started building and building, and among the things they built in addition to the SEEDS ecosystem was a product suite. They used the word DHO instead of DAO because they wanted to put the letter H in the middle to speak to the human. A decentralized human organization, or decentralized holonic organism, because it's not that we're just robots. It's not decentralized autonomous. Yes, we have to have rules and agreements. Agreement space, as Terry is so passionate about and has really helped me see, the agreement space is really important. And that's what agreements are for, but they're not autonomous agreements that are just machines. They are human agreements. And so right now, Haifa is releasing the beginnings, the alpha testing and the beta testing of their decentralized product suite, the Haifa DAO. And I see that as deeply connected to what is emerging in the SEEDS ecosystem. So Haifa figured out how to build SEEDS. Haifa figured out how to kind of work together as a community. And right now we are at the dawn of launching the SEEDS ecosystem into the world, regrounded on the ground. And so I want to just briefly mention that the SEEDS ecosystem, as ideas at the very beginning, didn't see the whole picture. People never see the whole picture at the beginning because it reveals itself as the time is ready. You know, we just had that beautiful eclipse last night. You know, things reveal themselves as you are ready, as the community is ready. And the initial part of the SEEDS ecosystem deployment had one critical challenge, one critical tension. And I wasn't there at the beginning, and I didn't even see it when I joined. You know, when I started getting involved, it didn't become clear to me for several months. And it took a long time for it to really be visible. But they built into it unintentionally a substantial tension. They said, we're going to start off SEEDS. We don't know what they're worth. You know, like, how many seeds should it cost for tomato? I don't know. You know, well, let's let the community kind of figure this out and stuff. And they said, let's just imagine a seed equals a penny. Got to start somewhere. Let's just imagine that. And so then if the farmer's selling a tomato, he'll kind of know how many seeds to ask for. But we also told the story that seeds were on a journey to be worth something more like $1. Seeds are on a journey through bootstrap, through the economic design to grow in value, just like what was happening in the rest of the financial-based crypto space, all of these kind of crypto casinos and all that kind of stuff. And so they just said, we're going to be worth $1. And when we're worth $1, we'll be worth $1, and we'll be at that point because we will have matured into a large ecosystem with potentially millions of people, you know, improving their local communities and feeling really inspired to awaken to you know, the thrivability renaissance of regeneration on the planet. And so we're on a journey. We're not there right now, but let's just imagine once we get there, seeds are probably worth about $1, you know, maybe more, you know. And once we get there, once we're at a sufficient critical mass, then we'll stop the price growing, because we can do that mathematically. And we'll, instead of it growing kind of like in a kind of a fast pace as the ecosystem is you know, people are arriving, it's going to grow it at a slower pace where it's just intended to grow to offset inflation, so that it will be what we use the word constant currency, in that it will have a somewhat familiar idea of constant purchasing power over years and decades. So it will no longer grow in the bootstrap phase, and a lot of this made sense, you know, like in some of the intuitional language that was being used, like, you know, seeds was it was in the womb, and it was emerging, and it was learning how to grow. And when a baby is in a womb, those cells divide really fast, and then when the baby comes out into the world, you know, the cells divide slower. And when you're you know, like my kids, they're teenagers, they seem to be growing super fast, but they're going to stop one day. And then, you know, we all kind of like hit our our stride, and we know about how tall we're going to be, and and all that kind of stuff. And so it kind of made sense, looking at the natural world in that design, that seeds could grow from a penny towards $1 and then change its personality to be more stable, more constant. But there's a big problem with this, and we didn't recognize it early on, but it became a central problem last summer. And it became really clear we needed to redesign and reimagine something. Because if we were trying to launch seeds into the world to be used by millions of people, then the people need to use the seeds to buy their tomatoes and their bread and all the different things, and pay the plumber. And there's a tension there. If I have seeds in my wallet and they're worth a penny, and I think, 6 months from now, a year, 2 years from now, they're going to be worth $1, I don't want to use them to buy my tomato. I'll just use my regular money to buy the tomato. And we have this tension. The tension said, don't use it because it's going to be worth a whole lot more later. And the other side was, use it because we have to demonstrate circular economies and real, energetic flow in the whole seeds ecosystem. And those two purposes were at odds with each other, and it was not able to be reconciled. So we started and set up a SEEDS Currency working group. And this included Alex, who's on the call with us now, and Terry Molnar, and John Love, who's on the call with us now, and Stephen Gomes, and many other contributors. And the SEEDS ecosystem did something else right around the same time. Analos really helped us see this, that the SEEDS ecosystem needed a center to hold purpose, to hold the North Star, to hold the Constitution, to hold a real intention as to why are we here? Why are we here gathering? What are we here as our purpose? And I don't know who exactly does that in my beehive, but they clearly have some central coordinating capacity. And early on in SEEDS, the idea was that it was totally decentralized. There would be no central capacity because people experience the idea of some kind of central authority as that hierarchical authority space. And that's not what Analos and Terry and others are speaking about. They speak about elder guidance, about prioritization and facilitation, not power and control. And so we use our vision and imagination and the governance tools that existed in SEEDS, and we created a body to hold space for that and called it the SEEDS Commons. And we said that the SEEDS Commons as an organization was coming together to steward the health of the SEEDS ecosystem. And the SEEDS Commons was going to work on facilitation and prioritization and the act of deploying communities. And one of the things that came out of that was a new design for the way that the SEEDS token worked. It was no longer going to be one seed token that has dual personalities. Don't use it, use it, don't use it. I mean, we were going to have a family of tokens. And it's taken us a long time to really sit with this and to experience all the learnings to help this come through. And we are now at the point where through Alex and other people's amazing leadership, we are now at the point where we're ready to share the white paper, the story of the new SEEDS tokenomics. And I've got it on my screen here, but I want to slide down to one particular page first before I share this up. And Alex, after this, can share the link on chat so that you can see exactly, you can read all of this and so forth. Here it is. Okay, here's the thing I want to share. All right, let's just share screen. All right, so I can't see you anymore because I'm sharing the screen. But I want to, if you can see my mouse moving, I want to look at this picture for a moment. This is the governance, and this is what I said is that we created the SEEDS Commons. And the SEEDS Commons is not a power center, but rather a facilitation center. And the SEEDS Commons receives guidance from these working groups over here. There's a SEEDS Currency working group that I've been speaking about. There's a SEEDS Governance working group. I think John Love is on our Zoom call right now that John Love is taking a leadership role in. SEEDS Currency working group means like, how does the token, how does this thing called a seed or the family of seeds work in my wallet so that I can buy a sandwich and a tomato and do all kinds of stuff. SEEDS Governance is how do we make decisions together? How do we arbitrate? How do we honor and appreciate everything and making sure that we are making governance decisions that are wise towards our real purpose? SEEDS Economics Working Group has not yet been put together, but it will sometime soon. And this really is speaking to how is the circulatory flow that we can observe in the blockchain, in the SEEDS ecosystem working? One thing that I will mention that is quite remarkable about a blockchain is that unless you obscure things intentionally, everything is transparent. This is one of the KINS principles. All information should be available to all participants all the time. That doesn't mean that it's easy to get at the information. So a supercomputer programmer could look at everything on the blockchain and see lots more information than a regular person who can not really even use their phone very well. And so although all the information is recorded permanently and can't be forged or counterfeited on the blockchain, that doesn't mean it's accessible. So the SEEDS Economics Working Group is about observing all of this and sharing what is being learned and what has been being seen in the ecosystem. SEEDS communication needs to be able to tell the story about the SEEDS ecosystem in a context relevant way for the listener. You know, if I'm participating in the SEEDS ecosystem because I live in Vilcabamba and I work on a farm, my interest is about, can I get some seeds for the work I'm doing on the farm? And can I buy things and pay my rent and do the stuff that I want to do with those seeds? You know, that person doesn't need to know about what's happening in some area around the SEEDS ecosystem of balancing index tokens with other kinds of mathematical things. It's not relevant and it's confusing. But the tools have to be really easy to use. And so the SEEDS Communications Working Group has to work on telling the story in a context and thorough way for the listener, and to be able to share the story of how to use the tools. They have to be easy and gather feedback from the community as to what needs to be improved so that it can be. And then the last working group is, in fact, in my opinion right now, the most important one that we need, and that's the SEEDS Deployment Working Group. We need to take communities and start deploying them on the ground. And so as we speak about the project that Sid and Terry are working on in New England, Permatours, we speak about on this called Vilcabamba and Finca Sagrada. These are two perfect communities that can start being the first pilot projects. There's a group that has emerged called Regen Civics that is right now in the process of trying to select the first 12 pilot projects, because it's kind of an expensive process to deploy a pilot project. And you need to have a lot of attention given to it. And if you want it to be a good outcome, you need to be listening at all times to the information that's coming back. And you need to have the resources available to learn and to do the next 12 pilots even better, and the next 100 pilots after that even better. So I wanted to start by showing you this picture. The SEEDS Commons receives guidance and information and expert advice from the working groups who create white papers and have a project office to design what implementation would look like. SEEDS Commons acts as a coordinating and prioritization. It receives working capital from the aggregate ecosystem and then distributes it to what are called here partner DAOs that work on using that capital to achieve goals. When the SEEDS Commons is making decisions, it's not, as I said, a power hierarchical structure. If those decisions are of global import, then it needs to find a governance mechanism to go to the whole SEEDS community and in an effective way communicate the changes that are of global impact, and to receive feedback from the community as to what's called a referendum to vote on those changes. If a SEEDS Commons initiative is not of global impact, then it can go down to the next layer, which might be a community or a bioregion. It might be some specialty working group having to do with an aspect of the ecosystem. It may be very local in nature. And so this way we want to fractal and kind of move the decision making in a good way to the space where it's most appropriate and where the expertise exists. So this is a really important part of the redesign of the SEEDS ecosystem. But I want to go back over here. And again, Alex can share this paper, because I'm only going to go through it a little bit, and I'm going to stop in about 5 or 10 minutes so that we can take questions. So this white paper is really from the SEEDS Currency Working Group, and it speaks about the mathematics and the tokenomics. And this redesign was intended to make something that was really sustainable and coherent, that would serve the purpose. And so I'm going to show you some pictures because that's sometimes really helpful rather than looking at all these words. And you can see that there's some videos in here and so forth. But this new model includes 3 concepts of tokens instead of just one. There are the community seeds that are used on the ground. Like Walter and Susan have talked about that perhaps their seed in their community will be called the Vilka token. And Sid and Terry have talked about the seed that they use in their community might be called the Perma token. And so it's the name of the token or the money that you're using in your community. And since these tokens are used locally in your community among people that have a relationship to the local purpose and a shared agreement as to why their community is coming together to do this, then that's the location, that's the container that's best suited for them to build trust among each other and to really get the circular economy going. If it was the case after a period of time in Vilcabamba that you could do almost all of your day-to-day or month-to-month expenses in seeds and Vilcas, then we would really have accomplished something quite remarkable in the sense of that there is no longer a dependence upon fiat. And we can talk at another time about all of the challenges that fiat represents. There's a second type of seed token that's called the constant. And this is the token that's intended to hold its value against purchasing power across the whole ecosystem. So not just in an individual community. Individual communities can define and through templates what the purpose and the behavior of their local community token should be. So if one community wants to make sure that among the things that they're achieving in their community is that no one is hungry and no one is homeless, and we're going to solve that problem by making sure everybody gets 100 seeds every month or whatever is the right number as a UBI, a universal basic income, because they are important in the community and they are sharing their resources in the community, then that would be something that would be designed by the community into the way that their token works. The constant seed is a kind of a unifying concept where it sits outside of any individual community. And it has just a very simple purpose of being holding constant value across the ecosystem over time. And so if I'm in Vilcabamba and I've been a plumber for a while and I have a whole lot of Vilca seeds, but I'm moving to Boston where in New England they use perma seeds, I need a way to exchange them. And so the process would be facilitated through this middle layer, the constant seed, where I would exchange my Vilca seeds to get a certain number of constant seeds. And when I arrive in New England, I would exchange those constant seeds for perma seeds. And now I'm in part of that ecosystem, that community. And then the top layer is called the market seed. This is a seed that is intended to bring in working capital for the whole ecosystem. And it's intended to represent the value of the whole ecosystem in a way that's coherent and sustainable. And so if somebody is inspired to support the whole ecosystem, they feel called and they say, I want to contribute to building of this ecosystem, they would buy these market seeds. And in addition to helping the whole ecosystem go, if the ecosystem becomes more and more impactful in the world, more regeneration and so forth, then we would see that the value of the market seed would go up in price. So the market seed is kind of more familiar to people that want to invest into an ecosystem to really generate change. I wrote a short article recently about where philanthropy fits into the seeds ecosystem as well. So I'm going to move forward to one more picture and then I'm going to pause. So this is the seeds family tree and it's showing the market ecosystem, the constant ecosystem, and the community ecosystems. And there's a lot of amazing visuals that Alex and Joachim and Luigi and Reiki and others have created to kind of tell the story. So here you can see Vilcabamba here as a really successful community ecosystem and how people can plant their seeds and what kind of harvest would come from their seeds and why is it in alignment with natural principles. But they sometimes need to perhaps bring resources into the community that they don't have locally, maybe a certain kind of brick or something that they need for building or other things. They need to be able to bring stuff in and they need to, maybe they're growing a lot of a particular kind of food that's going to be exported to other communities around Ecuador. And so stuff needs to leave. And so these pictures kind of speak about how the whole ecosystem is related in large. I think I'm going to stop here. There's so much, and the detail I think is not appropriate for this conversation. But after you guys, we do some questions. If there's specific questions I can help answer, I will. So I'm going to stop sharing here. All right.
Bravo. Not an easy thing to do a high level overview. So I just want to Mark, you have this amazing ability to take really complex concepts and distilling them down. So yes, shall we open it up for some comments, reflections, and Q&A?
And as we're doing questions and Q&A and so forth, some of the other people that are deeply involved in the SEEDS ecosystem, feel free to help me answer.
Wonderful. Okay, William, good to see you.
Mark.
Welcome.
Hi, good to see you as well. It's been a while, particularly Mark. Hey, Mark. Can you explain a little bit more the difference between the constant seeds and the market seeds? I understand the constant seeds, but I guess I don't understand the market seeds well enough.
All right, I will weave it together. And I didn't get into this one element, even though it's so beautiful and fabulous. But there are, we are very close to a true deep alignment on this. And Terry keeps challenging various topics, and Alex challenges various topics, and Chuck and Simon and others. There's so many people, and that's really great. You know, many of you may be aware that in the crypto ecosystem, there's an ecosystem called Terra with a stable coin and Luna, and that over the last week and a half, they've gone through a lot of trouble. And so we want to be able to observe the trouble that they've gone through and look at it and see what lessons are there as we observe what we're building as well. The purpose of the market token is to represent the health of the whole ecosystem. So if you are curious about the health of the whole United States stock market, you could go and visit every company, but that would take a long time. And you might not even be able to get very accurate information, or you might just look on the news that night and see what the S&P 500 is doing, or what the Dow 30 is doing, or the Dow Industrials. And although those are inexact proxies, they have some teeth to them, because people are buying and selling stock in IBM, and people are buying and selling stock in Apple. And when you take the Dow 30 or the S&P 500, they're looking at those prices of the stock as a certain kind of proxy for the health of the United States stock market, the health of the United States economy. And so we wanted to speak towards that idea, that concept in the SEEDS ecosystem. So what is it that we're building? What we're building is thriving regenerative communities around the planet. Maybe that looks like more carbon in the ground. Maybe that looks like more art and music festivals. Maybe that looks like nobody is hungry. Maybe it looks like that we're living in what is demonstrably in balance with the natural holding nature's capacity. These are things that we could develop thrivability metrics for. And there's been a lot of work already started on this through Stephen and Anelos and others, Joachim. And so you can imagine that to me, it's not about whether or not Apple has sold a certain amount of phones and watches. That's what's about if you want to study Apple company. If you want to study our impact in the world, you need to look at the communities that are using SEEDS and what are they accomplishing. And each community will be accomplishing some things that are kind of universal, like how many tokens did they issue in the community? How many users? How are they circulating? Some things are kind of like generic metrics that you can look at because everything is fully transparent and public on the blockchain. So we can look at this and observe it. And some metrics might be really quite context specific. Like if a community says, we want to make sure that there are more bees than there ever were before, or more butterflies. And that's part of what their purpose is. That may be unique to their location, but we want to make sure that we're measuring that as well. And so I see in this that there's a directory of all of the SEEDS communities in the world, and they each have a website. And so when you click on Vilcabamba, you're brought to the Vilcabamba SEEDS community, where you can see what's happening there, and you can be inspired with the stories that are happening, and you can see those metrics. And if they talk about how many bees in the community is an important metric for them, then we'll see that number on that page. And so what we're able to do then is to look numerically through these proxies as the health that we are creating in the world. What does it look like? And if you add those numbers together in a weighted mechanism mathematically, kind of like they do the S&P 500, then you might very well be able to say, how much impact has the entire seeds ecosystem is experiencing right now? How well is it working? What we want is the seeds, global seeds token, that market seeds token, to be representative of that. Kind of like you can buy an ETF, the S&P 500 ETF. If you buy the market seed and the market is growing, the seeds ecosystem is having more impact in the world, there's more happiness, more everything. That's really what we're trying to achieve in human relationships in the world. Then the value, the price of that seeds token, the seeds market token should go up. But you always have to ask the question, go up against what? We are familiar with the idea of trading Apple stock for something called US dollars. And in fact, Apple stock is always priced in US dollars, and everyone's quite familiar with that and quite used to doing that. But what if the US dollar has, not 4, 2, 3, 7, 9, 11, whatever percentage inflation? What if the US dollar has a 200% inflation next year? That's going to really mess up figuring out how to price Apple stock. Because now Apple stock is confusing. Did it go up because Apple is better, or did it go up because the US dollar, diminished? It becomes confusing. And so all of this is mathematically kind of complex, and we have to learn through the SEEDS Communications Working Group how to share the story really properly. And so when we talk about the market seed, that's the market seed that's intended to be a semi-equal to the health of the whole ecosystem. We also have a seeds index token, like the S&P 500 index ETF, that will be woven in to help provide coherence and reliability to this whole process. So there's some math tying it all together, but that's what the market token is intended to be. That the market token should increase in value if the community is achieving its purpose globally better.
So Mark, is the market token then something that I can buy? Is it an investment token, basically?
You can think of it as an investment token. When you buy a market token, the question is where are you getting it? And the SEEDS Commons will be issuing market tokens that they will sell to people to get working capital for the treasury. So the SEEDS Commons can do its work. So if you buy your SEEDS market token from the SEEDS Commons, you are investing in seeing the change. You're giving capital to achieve the goals that are here. But you can also buy one of those SEEDS market tokens from someone who already has one. Just like you can buy Apple stock from someone who already has one, not from the company. And when you buy a SEEDS market token from someone who already has one, all you're doing is exchanging something. Just like if I buy a sandwich from someone who has one and I have some seeds, then I'm getting the sandwich and they're getting the seeds. And that did not help the seeds ecosystem directly achieve its goal. So buying seeds from the SEEDS Commons is how you invest in making sure that the ecosystem has the funding to achieve its goals. Buying seeds, market seeds from someone who already has them just says, I'd like to exchange them and you want to exchange them and we're two human beings making an agreement. So that's the market seed as opposed to the constant seed, as opposed to the real stuff is what's happening in the community seeds.
I'm really glad you're working on this, Mark. I think it's brilliant, and it strikes me that the market seed is the powerful currency for helping the world to relook at how you value the exchange, how you value reciprocity and the exchange of value. And because it promotes this whole concept of using a different metric, like a quality of life metric, and it turns it into something that is exchangeable and investable. So I think that the market seed part is huge in terms of this concept of shifting perspective on what is value in the world, and in terms of bringing the seeds environment into the world in a way in which people can invest in it. I'm really impressed. I'm really glad you're working on this, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren, do you want to facilitate questions?
Sure. Any other questions? I also want to hear from some of the other people on the SEEDS leadership team, just to kind of fill in the blanks too. Questions like, how does someone get involved in this? What level of complexity are we walking into? I know for myself, I'm really interested in it. And then it's like, whoa, there is a lot of complexity here. So what would be, well, first of all, I see a hand up. So Dr. Carmen has a question. So let's hear from her.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Mark. Absolutely amazing. So here's the question. The market seed regulation, how will it be regulated? Government regulation aspects of it.
That's a really good question. And part of the Haifa ecosystem is exploring how to relate to legacy environments. DAOs as an organization coming together to do something, a decentralized organization. In the United States, Wyoming recognizes them as an entity, as an LLC. And so even though they don't exist in the regulatory landscape of securities directly, that rather they exist on the blockchain, they have a bridge to the regular world. I don't really know. We know that the government, at least in the United States, has largely said that crypto is property, and so that it acts in long and short-term capital as other things. But I think a lot of this is still being figured out. We also need to develop in the SEEDS ecosystem, in the Hive ecosystem. There's a lot of initiatives going on all of the usual accounting and financial tools, just so that people can run their little businesses and run their lives and keep track of stuff. If imagine we come into the world, into a new country, and we have to use a new money, but they don't allow us to use Excel spreadsheets anymore, or they don't allow you to use QuickBooks, you need to like do everything, but you don't have all these tools that are really helpful. So I think this is all emerging, and the whole legal framework is a big part of what we're going to have to learn to explore together.
Thank you.
Other questions?
It won't be all that long before we have a QuickBooks that can handle multi-currency seeds, so it's on the roadmap.
This is so cutting edge. I think that the daunting nature of this endeavor really speaks to Susan's mission with setting up KINS groups. It's like, let's go for it. Let's set our mission big. Let's completely transform global currency. And SEEDS is really taking on that. So yes, Walter.
So I don't have so much of a question, just some thoughts about SEEDS. When I heard about it, it took me a long time to turn my thinking upside down, because SEEDS makes abundance possible, right? Like we have Vilcabamba is known for longevity, so we have a lot of elderly people here who really don't have much income, and we can say, just one example of how we can use SEEDS, we can say, hey, you guys have been given so much to the community for 80 years, 100 years. Every month we're going to give you 100 seeds or 200 seeds, whatever it takes. We'll decide. We'll have a little committee that can decide things like that. Or if somebody wants to plant trees, we can give them seeds. Or if they want to do a basketball camp, we can give them seeds. So we can do social things and also environmental things. And we'll also strengthen the local economy, because it's a local currency. So instead of people going to Loja to buy furniture, they'll talk to the local carpenters who can build beautiful furniture. So we're going to really strengthen our community. And I think, we all know what the dollar does. It pulls money out of the community, and we can keep it all here and make a thriving economy right here, and improve our environment and help people in need. So when I don't think I understand it totally yet, but the potential is so great. So I'm very excited to see how we develop this new model here in Vilcabamba.
Indeed, yes. And the willingness, the courage to take this leap into the unknown, because it is into the unknown. We are building the systems as we go, as Mark shared, and there are a lot of people working very hard behind the scenes to manage the level of uncertainty, because this is brand new. We haven't seen anything quite like it. Heather has her hand up. Well, there's two of you there, so I'm guessing one is Heather and one is someone else. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Gabriella.
So we have a Gabriella and a Heather.
And both have a question.
We both have a question, which is great. So we're in Portugal. Everything about this project is at the very beginning of us learning about it, but we just dived into the call when we saw it come up today. And really, where do we start? I mean, is there anybody else in Europe working with seeds? Can you speak about would we be at the very beginning, or is there something on the ground? And how can we start to incorporate more of this into what seems to be a growing community around us now? So fire away, anybody who's got anything.
Let me pass it over to Alex, and he can speak. There's a lot of people in Portugal, and Alex is in Europe right now.
Cool.
How cool.
Hi, yeah, I am based in Amsterdam, so yeah, in Europe. There's a vivid community in Portugal that you can reach out to and be part of, this energy of creating the SEEDS community on the ground, and also participating to, defining models that can be used for your own local context. So everybody can be involved. We can give you the links to. We're using a tool called Discord, and we can give you the link to that if you want to be involved. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. Did you say BD as in biodynamic community? Or
no, I was talking about your local community,
okay.
Your community around you. Yeah.
Okay.
There are deep connections in the biodynamic community as well as permaculture communities.
Sure.
Paulo, I don't know where in Portugal he lives, but Paulo's been in part of SEEDS for several years now, Paulo Coelho.
Oh,
wow.
Brilliant.
Cool.
If you're comfortable using Discord, as Alex said, he can put the link in, and then you can join the SEEDS Discord server and introduce yourselves, and then begin to find your tribe.
Brilliant. Cool. Thank you.
Very cool.
Gabriella, go ahead.
And let me just answer the rest of your question. So I am Portuguese myself, and I'm going to be in Portugal next month in Lisbon. And we also have one of our founders, deep founders of SEEDS, living in Lisbon, one of the early supporters anyway, Alan Lobb. She lives in Lisbon. And we have other people. I will, if you put your email in the chat, I will email you some of these connections that you can follow up on.
Couldn't ask for better than that. Thank you so much. That is just, jubilation. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Cool. So my question is, I love this idea that we have different markers that are about quality, not about quantity, because a lot of the markers that are used in the economy are so distorting using the quantity. So it's like, it's like really asking, how do we find the markers of quality of life that really indicate that can be turned into quantity, because many of them can't, can they?
Right.
There's a lot of indicators of quality that cannot be turned into quantity, and I imagine that could be a dilemma. So that's where my question is going. Like,
I think we'll get better at this, and that there are really thought leaders in each of these areas of measurement, and that we will start with something that is that is more familiar with where the current world is, and then we will learn together and become more effective with our measurements. Stephen, I know with Analos, there's a group, largely a lot of them are in Europe, called R3.0, that speaks about a whole new way of looking at regeneration from an economics, governance, measurements, and an education framework. And it's a kind of a think tank of academic scholars throughout Europe and the world. And so we're very well connected with them. They're right now doing a case study on Haifa and SEEDS. And so there's a lot to learn, but we have to hold the intention that we can capture that and know what it looks like.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I love that image of the bees, and there's so much more, isn't there? Like diversity and how many species and that kind of thing. I was like, I'm wrecking my brain and going like, oh, what kind of markers could? But happiness of children, for example, how do you mark that? Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, there was also one other comment on your question. There's a fellow I work with who was with the United Nations trying to come up with ways of tracking exactly and measuring and tracking those non-quantifiable things like love, like inclusion, and they have developed a metric.
Wow.
It's not completely finished, but I can send you the sample of it, and it'll probably give you some pretty good ideas of how they're working that out.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Thank you.
you so much.
Thanks,
When I
Stephen.
spoke about the SEEDS Economics Working Group as one of the working groups, that's the working group that will hold space for that kind of exploration and expertise.
Beautiful. And I also want to say, we've been a little bit involved in the Terra network ecosystem, and it's like really shocking to feel how it's been smashed to smithereens.
Yep.
And like, yeah, to create I like that you say, how do we create the resilience and learn from what's required so that cannot happen. So it's, yeah.
It
Beautiful.
didn't happen to SEEDS because we're not connected to that same system, and we weren't on the exchanges. And one other thing about that is that's the Chinese. The Chinese are trying to prevent independent, decentralized coins from occurring in the world. They're doing everything they can. And that particular ploy that you saw right there was actually a squeeze by them on Bitcoin, but they did it by just trying to destroy Terra and Luna, and they have succeeded in destroying a lot of wealth. But I don't think they will bring down the movement toward decentralized, autonomous groups and currency. They're not going to succeed. They want to substitute their Chinese digital yuan and get the world to go that route because they can control it. But no, that's the opposite of what we do.
Exactly. And that's where the resilience comes in, and maybe I'm glad to hear that maybe it's not through the exchanges. We can't go through the centralized exchanges because then that it becomes vulnerable, doesn't it?
Does in many ways. Yeah.
Beautiful
world, yes.
Thank you.
Well,
I
thank you
think
for
what is
joining
beautiful
us.
is the.
And go ahead, Alex.
I just wanted to add a comment on that. I think what is beautiful with what we are building is that we are backing our, the value of the currency on regeneration, everywhere in the world. And it's not the case of Terra, Luna, because the backing was made on Bitcoin and other financial instruments. What we are doing here is real, and we want to be super genuine when we talk about the value created on the ground. You were talking about the impact metrics, and that's definitely something we will spend a lot of time on to make sure that we value, the regeneration at the right level. And we will make sure that, the market seeds are as exact as possible, as close as possible to the actual regeneration in the real world, if you like. So that's the big difference.
Beautiful.
I mean, the big difference there is that this elicits the response from my heart. I want to weep with gratitude, whereas the other is just a headway into something, but it's still based on something that's kind of nothing. That there's something which is which is okay. But this is something that we can actually engage with in real terms. So I'm very, very excited. Thank you.
Well, to put it in just really simplistic terms, there's crypto for greed in the world, which is probably 95% of it. And then there's crypto for good, which is us and other people playing in that same ethical set of goals. But I'll give this to the crypto for greed people. They pioneered the way. They showed us that these tools exist and we can use them for good. Now, just the fact that right now a lot of human beings are using it for speculation doesn't mean that everybody has to, and we certainly are not. So I don't say that that was all bad, but there are a lot of people out there who are all focused about the money and not about regeneration, which is what Alex just pointed out, that that's our whole entire purpose.
I want to acknowledge that Walter and Susan have their hand up again, and then Terry has his hand up too. So Walter and Susan.
I just was filled with emotion because it was more than 40 years ago that I started the first KINS Innovation Network that let people collaborate instead of compete, but it was only in one sector or another sector, 40 different sectors. And now to have brought this together where we can be on a call like this with all of us intending to restore Earth and support each other. It's so thrilling in my life at 80 to have experienced you all doing this together, men and women equally sharing, collaborating. It's just, I can hardly speak. And I thank you, every one of you.
Well, thank you, Susan, for being the attractor field that drew so many of us here together today. Yes, so many of us are here as a result of the seeds, both literal and figurative, that you planted over the past 40 years. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Terry. Terry's been very involved in the SEEDS movement, and so love to hear your perspective.
There's a couple of things I think I'd enjoy sharing that I think other people will enjoy. The first thing I think you want to think about is that the SEEDS community is a community. It has activities, but it's a community, and it's not defined by geography. Notice the people on this phone call are from all over the world. The SEEDS community is a non-geographic community of people. That's a whole new thing that we can now do in the world. The second thing I want to point out is that the SEEDS community and currency is about ending the system that exists right now and turning it upside down in a loving way, because we're simply providing an opportunity for people to participate or not participate. But the current system allows rich people to get richer. That's its basic structure. And this is not going to do that. This is going to be trying to do the opposite and helping everybody to participate as an equal human being. And that's the third thing I want to point out. But first, I want to say that just quickly, the way the current system works is rich people get richer because they can borrow money at low interest rates and they can invest it and get a 10% return in the stock market and make a lot of money. Whereas poor people living paycheck to paycheck or close to it, they have to borrow on credit cards at 18%. And so this whole system is a fundamentally immoral system now. And so we need to correct that. And that is part of what we're about doing. But the third thing I want to point out is that the system is based upon each human being being equal to every other human being in all ways, shapes, and forms. That's the wonderful thing about the agreement nation, that the crypto world is based upon. In the crypto world, I like to say, if I make an agreement with Alex to meet him at Tuesday at Starbucks, where's the agreement? Can you point at it with your finger? No, you can't. It doesn't have a material reality. It's something we created, invented, and live as if it's real. Well, agreements are like that. Agreements exist in the agreement realm. They do not have a materiality. If I write in my date book that I'm going to meet Alex at 2:00 on Tuesday at Starbucks, then I've put it into a material form. But what Bitcoin did is it revealed to us that we can give priority to the agreement realm. And the wonderful thing about being in the agreement realm is that there was no decision about whether Alex was a more successful person or less successful person than I. There was no thing about Alex being at a higher status in the society or lower status. No. An agreement is an agreement between equal parties, and the equal parties can then choose to do what they want to do. So if we build a governance system that gives priority to the individual keeping each person's power, and then set up an agreement system, then the system can be a system not of a hierarchical power structure, but a system of facilitation of building the agreement before the vote. We build the agreements and we realize, oh, yes, this is really something we want to do. We've all talked about it. We now know. Then we take the vote. We don't do the vote and then fight like crazy to try to win the vote. No. We do it the opposite way. So these are just some of the things that are now possible for us to be doing quite differently from the way we've been doing them. And all this is part and parcel of what I think we're thinking about when we're thinking about the SEEDS community and the SEEDS currency.
Thank you, Terry. And I want to point out, I'm going to pop it in the chat. Terry has published several amazing books, and I've interviewed him a couple of times now. I've managed to get our radio interview up on the website, Terry, but when we did the video interview, we talked for 2 hours. I mean, so I still have to edit that. He is brilliant, and he has made his books available to read for free on his website at Sensation of Oneness. Oh, it's .org, isn't it? Not .com.
Yes.
But his whole concept of, the common good nation, that's what this is starting to become, that we are joining together by agreement beyond geography. I mean, this is the first time in human history we've had an opportunity to even think like this. So how exciting to be part of this. And for those of us in the room, it's not necessarily one and done, like, okay, the system exists, let's use it, but let's start using it. Let's do what we can. So I did put a couple notes in the chat. Kinship Earth has an organizational account, and we were given a grant from SEEDS to introduce SEEDS to our Kinship Earth community. And so by attending a presentation like this, if you don't already have a SEEDS account, we can set you up with one and give you a small gift of SEEDS to get you started. And then someone else already put the Discord link in the channel, I believe. Discord, how would you describe Discord to those of us those folks who don't know it? It's sort of like a Facebook, but not. It's its own little channel. It's not super easy to navigate, but that's where all the communication for people in the SEEDS community is currently taking place. Any other comments on that, on people getting started in SEEDS? So from the SEEDS leadership team, what would you recommend for people just getting started?
I would say that Discord is the right place to start the SEEDS server with all the bioregions and all the different teams around the world, and so that connections can start. And there's also, of course, the SEEDS app where people can create an account and and see some interactions going on there as well. So yeah, I would say that.
Great. And if you're a business owner, you can set it up so that you can receive SEEDS in your business, and all those tools are being developed. So we'll be able to have more of a circular economy. Okay, can someone share the Discord channel link again, please?
Alex, if you can put it on there, I'll just do a 1-minute share here so that you can get kind of a visceral experience of it just briefly. This is what the SEEDS Discord server looks like. This is the icon. I look at a lot of different Discord servers, but this is the SEEDS Discord server. And this is the list of what they call channels. So you could start here, you could go to another channel, and you can see that there's lots of discussions, and each channel is about a theme. So all these channels are general in nature. These are community in nature, some questions, governance in nature, alliances, the SEEDS Commons, the tech support, the currency tokenomics, some more economic stuff, ambassadors, Renaissance explorers. And so there's just a vast amount of information. And every time it's in bold with a little dot here, it means that there's new posts that are there that I haven't looked at yet. So you could see that it's impossible to keep up on everything, but this is where a person would come, they'd go in to introduce themselves here into the community, and they could introduce themselves, and people will look at this, and then they'll start talking to each other and figuring out where they fit.
Yeah,
Yes.
if I could add one more thing, Lauren.
Please.
One of the things I'd like people to be aware of in terms of the values, the purpose, and the identity of the SEEDS community that's beautifully put in our Constitution. It ends the polarization between the political left and the right in this sense. There is a total recognition that the greatest power, my greatest power needs to stay in my body, and I need to accept full responsibility for it. So that is understood. But the other side of the coin is that there's a recognition of the oneness of nature. And therefore, all of us by nature mature in the giving priority to the common good of all. That is what's called becoming a mature human being. And so we end the polarization between me versus doing gooder stuff for other people. We say, no, both. And the way you do it is you accept full responsibility for yourself within the recognition the universe operates as an indivisible whole, and we're a part of it. And by our joy is being a participant in that maturation of the universe as an indivisible whole. And so I just want to have people understand that that's the vision and the purpose and the identity of who we see ourselves being, and we welcome you to participate in.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So this was a, fairly daunting, I'm sharing my screen. There we go. Fairly daunting topic to take on in a high level overview. Mark, you did a fantastic job giving us a taste of what SEEDS is all about and how people can kind of get involved. So, I'm trying to navigate here. So thank you so much, Mark. And if people want to share this information, we are going to be posting the recording of this on our website. I want to give you a little taste of upcoming events that we have coming up. So Hank Patton is in the room. Hank, I don't know if you want to give a wave. Hank Patton is the steward of the Little White Salmon Biodiversity Reserve, and he's also very well versed on what's called intergenerational finance and how we can rethink about our financial instruments and systems to take into account future generations to more rapidly get rid of the dirty brown technology and adopt green technology. So we're going to want to hear from him. That's coming up Friday, June 17th. And then our KINS alumni from the Solar Circle will be joining us in July. Several of the members of the Solar Circle to give us an update on their accomplishments and their current initiatives and priorities. And then in September, we have Elisa Gravitz, and she's going to give us an update on Green America, an amazing organization. Elisa is a longtime KINS member and alumni and has assisted Susan very closely in her work. And also want to point out in our video library, we are collecting some wonderful topics. Sid and Walter presented last week about the Regen Civics Alliance and about Sid's work with permatours and some of these regenerative eco-village pilot projects that are happening. Terry Molnar finally posted his radio interview that I got to do. And Terry has some brilliant concepts about how to think about this evolution of a species that we're maturing into. So highly encourage you to listen to that. Dr. Annalo Smitzman about architecting a regenerative world and future. Stuart Valentine on the primacy of consciousness in greening our global economy. Heather Booth, who is a progressive organizer, talking about the power of organizing to make social change. Frank Dixon on global systems change and the economics behind how we have to think about that. And Benjamin Bingham, who is very interested, he's an impact investor, very interested in Rudolf Steiner's work and the threefold social order. So lots of good stuff. And then opportunities to connect with KINS network members. Walter and Susan are launching a regenerative eco-village pilot program in Vilcabamba. Finca Sagrada is their biodynamic farm community, and there are opportunities to get involved on the ground level in preserving their land as a sacred site and taking it to the next level as a regenerative community. So with that, I'm going to stop my share. And I want to thank everybody for taking your time to be with us today. We are building a community, again, standing on the shoulders, so to speak, of Susan Davis Mora with all of the work that she has done over 40 plus years, identifying high-level conscious human beings like us who care about the earth and come from a spirit of generosity and want to work together. So coming up on the end of the hour, any closing comments or thoughts? Feel free to unmute yourselves.
This is Ken. I'd love to share a thought.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, just offering gratitude for you, Mark, the work that you're doing, and for everyone who's involved with SEEDS and Haifa, and just this next generation and many generations in New Earth architecture. And kind of a thought that came through was, you know, Susan mentioned on this call that 40 years ago, what the situation was, and now 40 years later, here she is on this call, and kind of the monumental moment that is this call. And I just had the thought of, you know, 40 years from now, I might be on a call and say 40 years ago, I was on this Kinship Earth call, and Susan shared that 40 years earlier, she was in this circle and this is what was happening. And then taking that even a step further, who's going to be the young person on that call that one day they're on a call 40 years later and they say, I was on this call with Ken, this guy 40 years ago. And so it goes.
Beautiful perspective. How about it?
Lovely, Ken.
And it speaks to the impact, right? The ripple effect that we all have. So thank you. Any other closing comments? Susan and
Thank
Walter,
you all
do you
for
want
being here.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for.
Comment was hallelujah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
It's nice to see you, Judy Thornburg. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Very good to see you.
It's great to see faces.
Yes, it is. Very much so. Adios.
Hi, John and Satya.
John and Satya, yeah.
Woohoo! All right, stay tuned.
Thank you so much,
I'll be
Lauren.
Sending the recording out soon.
Love
to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Love, light, and flow. Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi.
Mahalo.
Thank you for joining us for today's Kinship Earth Connections event. We encourage you to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. To learn more and get involved, please visit us at kinshipearth.org.